All right, guys, welcome in. This is the Football Fanatics podcast. Today we are going to be doing an NFL mock draft for the 2019 draft that's coming up. I'm here. I'm Eric Wheeler. I have next to me is James Chason and Ryan Buck. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to have one of us basically act like the GM of a team, basically. And we're going to start with Arizona and go on to San Fran and so on throughout the draft. We're going to have James start off as Arizona. So we're just going to get right into it, actually. James, so you're Arizona. Who would you pick?
So, Arizona, obviously, they were the worst team in the NFL last year. They have a lot of holes to fix. I do like some of the coaching moves they made this offseason, like hiring Vance Joseph and moving back to a 3-4. And with Marcus Golden as an impending free agent, I'm going to take Nick Bosa here. This is everyone's consensus number one pick, and he's honestly the best player in this draft class. So him and Chandler Jones would make quite of a duo. So take him here.
I like that pick. I think Nick Bosa, a lot of people say that he's possibly better than Joey.
Mm-hmm.
So taking him here, he's the obvious choice. So I'm going to be next. So I'm San Francisco. I'm sitting here. I like Josh Allen. I like Rashawn Gary. I like Quinnen Williams. I think I'm going to go with Josh Allen, though. He's, to me, he's the, next best on the board. They need a good pass rusher. He can do basically everything. He's a dynamic pass rusher. You can play him all over the defense. He's really the main reason Kentucky was even in contention for the SEC East. So, he had 88 tackles this year, 21 for a loss, 17 sacks. There's just so much you can say about this guy. He's an elite athlete. There's just tons and tons and tons. This is a perfect pick for San Fran, and I believe this is who they go. So we're going to move on to Buck. Who do you believe the Jets take?
So, yeah, I am a Jets fan, so I will admit that I wanted this pick here, and I'm on the clock if I'm the New York Jets. You got Quinnen Williams available. You've got some other guys available. And the Jets have so many needs. I know this team better than anyone. They can go any position here, but they drafted a quarterback at number 3 last year. Sam Darnold. They need to pick an offensive lineman. Wide receivers nowadays and running backs, it seems like they're so easily founded now. I mean, Robbie Anderson was an undrafted wide receiver. Quincy Newell was selected in the 6th round, and they're franchise wide receivers. Offensive linemen, not so easy to find, and Jonah Williams speaks for itself. That's who I'm going with, Jonah Williams out of Alabama. He's 6'5", 302 pounds. He is literally everyone talks about the prototypical quarterback. Yeah. He's the prototypical offensive lineman. He goes out there and he beasts. I don't see any other choice here for the New York Jets. I mean, they could go Quinnen Williams. They could go Ed Oliver. But offensive line, you got to protect that quarterback and Sam Darnold. He's young. He's going to make mistakes. Give him time in the pocket.
I agree. What everybody says is you need your franchise quarterback. You need someone to pass rush for the quarterback. And then you need someone to be able to block for your quarterback. They get that person to block for the quarterback right here with Jonah Williams. So we're going to move on to Oakland, and that's James.
All right. So, again, Oakland, they may not have been the worst team, but I believe they do have the most needs. There's so many holes on this roster. And John Gruden traded one of the best pass rushers of this generation in Khalil Mack, but I think he makes do and adds a good one here in Rashawn Gary from Michigan. In his career, he had 9.5 sacks, 23 tackles for loss. This guy has a great motor, and he's one of those guys that Gruden likes, those gritty players, and I think he'd be a great fit here. He can play defensive end or defensive tackle if needed, so I love this pick.
Now, do you see him being a better fit here than Quinnen Williams? Or?
Yeah, because Quinnen Williams is more of an inside player, and they have P.J. Hall, who they got last year, I believe, and Jonathan Hankins, who they're probably going to bring back, so they definitely need more of an edge rusher.
I just kind of wanted you to explain like you did, just for any Oakland fans listening, you know. So
I like the Rashawn Gary pick. I think he's one of the better players in this draft. But me sitting here as Tampa Bay, I'm loving that Quinnen Williams just fell to me. I honestly believe that they're going to move on from McCoy this offseason. So Quinnen Williams falling into my lap here at 5, a guy who possibly could go number 2 overall in this draft. I am loving this pick. I mean, this guy is amazingly talented. He is an amazing run stopper. He's good at pass rush. I mean, there's just so much you can see. He plays with a non-stop motor, basically. It's like this guy can't get tired, basically. He's on the field all the time, and I mean, there's too much I can say about this. If I'm Tampa Bay, I'm overjoyed about getting Quinnen Williams here. That's basically what I have to say. I mean, I'm just overjoyed for Tampa Bay.
I mean, I'm running my pick down to Roger Goodell at that point. I'm getting that pick in. So
exactly. So we're going to move on to the Giants here, and that would be Buck.
Yeah, so Giants, I mean, they have said that they want to sign not sign Eli Manning. They want to start Eli Manning next year. Dwayne Haskins is available, and that's who I'm going. Even though they want to start Eli Manning next year, how much longer does he really have? I mean, give him maybe another year, but say he even stinks next year, which I didn't honestly think he did very good last year, but that's another topic for another day. Dwayne Haskins is available. He's going to be the number one quarterback off the board for us anyways in this mock draft. I mean, Dwayne Haskins, stats speak for itself. 50 touchdowns, only 8 interceptions, pretty safe with the ball, 4,800 yards. Yeah. Dwayne Haskins, to me, is the best quarterback available, and I've got him going number 6 to the Giants.
Yeah, he was in the Heisman running for a while. Another quarterback in this draft, Kyler Murray, he's the one who got the Heisman, but I would say Dwayne Haskins probably has the better measurables than Kyler Murray, so I understand why the Giants
We've seen Heisman players time and time again not work out in the NFL.
I like the Dwayne Haskins pick here. I think him learning a year under Eli would actually be really good for him. So we'll move on to James for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
So Jacksonville, they have one huge need, and it's at the quarterback position. Blake Bortles, yes, last year he did have a pretty good year, but this year he was terrible, turned the ball over constantly. But you know, I'm going to pull a shocker here. I'm going to take Ed Oliver. That's because I do believe that they're going to free up enough cap to sign Nick Foles or trade for Nick Foles now.
Yeah, probably trade.
Ed Oliver could have definitely been the number one overall pick here, but due to some on-the-field technical issues with his coach, Applewhite, I believe, over the jacket thing, and I don't know exactly what happened. Obviously, I wasn't there, but he's going to fall a little bit due to that, and he kind of reminds me of a more talented guy in the Cardinals. What's his name? Ole Miss.
Nkemdiche?
Robert Nkemdiche, yeah, more talented Nkemdiche. His draft stock fell a lot due to off-the-field issues, but they get a steal here, and Malik Jackson is a possible cap casualty, so that'd be a great fit.
And I think I just want to add on to your off-field issue type thing. Don't we see in the NFL so many times now, they sign these off-field kind of guys that have problems off-field. I mean, I think we're seeing it more in the NFL. Reuben Foster was claimed by the Redskins right away. I mean, we see more of it. I don't know what the Kareem Hunt situation is going to be, but we see more and more of this time and time again, these off-field issues. These guys still get signed by these teams and drafted by these teams.
People are already saying that Kareem Hunt already has a few suitors are going to be available to him. So, hey, you never know. But now we go on to the Lions, who I have a lot of picks here. And, you know, I feel like they do kind of need a corner. They might need a pass rush if they lose Ansah. I'm going to take Farrell here. Kylin Farrell, I want to say his name is. He has length, strength. He's a pure athlete. He has really good with his hands. I mean, his stats kind of speak for himself the last 2 years. 20.5 tackles for a loss and 11.5 sacks in 2018. He had 18 tackles for a loss and 9.5 sacks in 2017. That's a good pass rusher right there. And that also shows that he gets in the backfield a lot. When I watched him, to me, he was just a dominant force that I feel like this team's going to need. Yes, a corner would be nice here, maybe like a Byron Murphy or a Greedy Williams. But I feel like if they do lose Ansah, I believe this would be the better pick. So moving on from there, we go to Denver. Or actually, no, we go to Buffalo.
Buffalo, yeah. So I'm here with the Buffalo Bills at pick number 9. And again, they have a lot of needs. This is another team that made the playoffs 2 years ago. They lost a lot of positional talents. They even had some retiring with who's the corner that retired? Vontae Davis. Vontae Davis.
Middle of a chart.
Yeah, at halftime. Kyle Williams was gone. So they have needs. But for me, I'm going Byron Murphy at corner. Now, I know people are going to say, whoa, Greedy Williams on the board. And he is 6'3". Greedy Williams is 6'3". He's got all the talent in the world. But Byron Murphy, hear me out. This guy was a baller at Washington. He's 5'11". He's a little on the shorter side. But 58 tackles, 4 interceptions. He was a lockdown corner in Washington. And I honestly, Greedy Williams is more of the ball hawk. But the pair Byron Murphy with Tre'Davious White, honestly, I think Byron Murphy is just more the lockdown corner. And he's not going to get you as many interceptions as maybe Greedy does. But we saw it a couple years ago or no, 2 years ago when they drafted Tre'Davious White, everyone said he was kind of the same situation as Byron Murphy. There's other guys better than him. White, honestly, I would say is the number 2 corner out of that draft behind Jalen Ramsey. I think Byron Murphy, he can be the best corner in this draft.
I agree with that. I love Byron Murphy. He's my top corner in this draft. I know a lot of people like Greedy Williams.
Including me.
But that's the LSU fan, James. But I love Byron Murphy. I think he is the best corner in this draft. His man-to-man is fantastic. When playing in zone, he's been good. And he's just an all-around ball hawk. He is very good when it comes to knowing where the ball is going to go. I love him. I think that's a fantastic pick for Buffalo. Pairing him with Tre'Davious White, that'd be fantastic. Moving on to Denver. So that'd be James.
So if I'm John Elway, I'm feeling a lot of pressure. I mean, a few years ago, they won the Super Bowl against Carolina. That's all good. They have not been back to the playoffs since. They're coming off 2 terrible years in a row with Vance Joseph at the helm. They signed Case Keenum last year. That was a terrible signing. Now that you're looking at it, I mean, it looks like it was a one-hit wonder in Minnesota. So I'm going to have them take the prototypical quarterback in Drew Lock. Yes, he had an all right Senior Bowl. He was definitely outplayed by Daniel Jones, but I still think Drew Lock will be the pick here. In his career at Missouri, he had 99 touchdowns, 33 picks, and 12,000 yards. He's just the prototypical quarterback. He has the height, he has the arm strength, and I think this will be the pick here. He can also sit a year behind Case Keenum because he has 1 year left on that deal. So I really love this pick for Denver.
I honestly believe this will be the pick for Denver. There's been a lot of media around this that Elway just has fallen in love with Drew Lock. Maybe it's just a smoke and mirrors, but I honestly believe that is true. And seeing how Case Keenum played last year,
you can't rely on him.
Yeah, so I believe Drew Lock will actually be the pick here.
I mean, I look at Denver's team, and it just shouts playoff team to me. You got to get that quarterback situation right, and you can be there.
Exactly. So, again, I'm now at Cincy at 11, and I'm going to do the same thing I did with Tampa Bay. I see Greedy Williams sitting there, and I believe he is the best available, and there is no reason that Cincinnati should ever pass on Greedy Williams. This is a fantastic pick. This is a guy that in some people's mock drafts is going top 4. Some people have him going top 7. To him to fall to 11 to Cincinnati, there is no reason Cincinnati shouldn't take this. I mean, he's 6'3". He's very good. He has very good ball skills. He is basically known as the top corner in this draft. Not my top corner. Again, I said Byron Murphy was mine, but a lot of people have him as the top corner in this draft. If I'm Cincinnati, again, I'm running this up to Roger Goodell, and I'm throwing it in his face because I want this pick.
In this pick, if they do go Greedy Williams, obviously we're doing a mock draft with no trades. But if they're sitting here at what, number 11 was it?
Yeah.
Yep.
If they're sitting here at number 11, I mean, and they get Greedy Williams, this reminds me of the Colts when they had Malik Hooker sitting there. Now, they weren't a great team at the time, but when you have your quarterback situation already set, you can go with a Malik Hooker falling to where they did, or last year with the Chargers getting Derwin James. This would remind me a lot of that. Andy Dalton's not the greatest, but he's still a quarterback that you have set at that position. Greedy Williams, you got to take him.
I agree. So now we move on to Green Bay. And that would be Buck.
So I got Montez Sweat he spent 2 years in Michigan State, and then he spent the last 2 years, most recently in Mississippi State. This guy's 6'6", he's 245 pounds, and he had 12 sacks last year. I mean, the Packers, they've got some D-line guys, Kenny Clark, Mike Daniels, Muhammad Wilkerson's meh. I mean, he could be gone after this year anyways. Get Montez Sweat in there. The defense is the issue for the Packers, let's be honest. I mean, the offense, it's there. You got to get some defensive playmakers in that building. Just get Montez Sweat there, and you're already going to cause problems for other offensive lines.
What I really like about the Sweat pick is they picked a guy called Jari Alexander last year. The less time he has to cover...
And Joshua Jackson.
Exactly. The less time they have to cover is going to equal to more picks for them. Jari already showed last year that he is a potential Pro Bowl cornerback. I think if you then add a good pass rusher like Montez Sweat and him getting pressure on quarterbacks, that's going to be a lot of mistakes happening. That's forced fumbles. That's picks for the Packers defense. That is something Aaron Rodgers is going to love.
Oh, yeah.
So, moving on here, we go to Miami. And that's...
Oh, and just, back to the Packers thing. Look at the quarterbacks in that division. If you can get a pass rush on Matt Stafford, Mitchell Trubisky, Kirk Cousins, I mean, that's a division full of quarterbacks. You've got to get to the quarterback.
That is very true.
So, at number 13, we have the Dolphins. And this is the most intriguing team to me here. I could definitely see them going a lot of ways. Maybe a Kyler Murray, but they already mentioned that they do want to tank kind of next year to grab either Herbert or Tua, one of the guys. So they brought in a defensive-minded coach in Brian Flores, who was the linebacker coach for the Patriots. And you know what? I'm going to have them take the best linebacker in the draft, in my opinion. I'm going to have them take Devin White from LSU. In his career, he had 1 interception, 8.5 sacks, and 28.5 tackles for loss. And on paper, it doesn't sound great, but watching this guy play week in and week out was amazing. He's a captain for that defense. He'll come in day one and kind of be like a Jamal Adams for that locker room, take everybody under his wing, have them all play as dogs. Is that what he said? Play as dogs. I really love this pick for Miami, and guys like Kiko Alonso, they're getting older. He's not as great as he was in the past, so they could definitely move on from him. Devin White's the pick here.
I agree. Devin White is a tackling machine. LSU actually has a lot of good people in this draft. I mean, just look at the top 2. Look at our last few picks. You have Devin White and Greedy. In most people's mock drafts, that's the number 1 linebacker and the number 1 cornerback. Number 1 inside linebacker. But moving on, we'll go to Atlanta. And for me, I'm sitting here and I see one of my favorite players in this draft, which is Christian Wilkins. And I know Grady Jarrett is a free agent right now. They'll probably bring him back, but if not, they still need D-line help. So I'm seeing Christian Wilkins here, and I love Christian Wilkins. Last year, he could have been a top 5 talent going into that draft, but he decided to go back to Clemson because he wanted a title. They got that title this year. It showed his loyalty to Clemson, and I think that's an aspect that a lot of teams are going to like. His just pure loyalty. He's another guy who just plays with a non-stop motor. There's just a lot I can say about this guy. I really liked him last year. He was a guy that I thought the Chargers, which was my team, I thought that was a guy he got mocked to us a few times before he said he was going to go back to the draft. So I had a lot of tape on him. I like him a lot. He's a 6'4", 300-pound D tackle. That's a big dude. 14 tackles for loss and 5.5 sacks last year. So it shows that he can get to the backfield, stop a run. He's good. He is versatile enough to be a good pass rusher also, so you don't have to take him out of the game on pass rushing downs. And really, it's just his competitiveness. He showed it at Clemson. After they won that game, you saw the pure emotion coming off him once they won that. He had tears, and then after that, he was playing around with his coach. You could see he was just – it was big to him, and I think teams are going to like that. I think Atlanta's going to love bringing him in, so Christian Wilkins my pick there. So after that, we have the 15th pick, which is Washington. So we'll go to Buck.
So, Washington was one of the worst offensive lines last year. And again, with Alex Smith maybe being out next year, you can maybe bring in a rookie quarterback, or you can bring in some kind of veteran like Teddy Bridgewater, or even Nick Foles, who, we kind of talked about him maybe going to the Jaguars. But that's an honest, option, or even Ryan Tannehill maybe for the Redskins.
Hey, they do have Colt McCoy under contract.
Colt McCoy, yeah. So, but whoever it is, you got to protect the quarterback. And again, they're one of the worst offensive lines last year for the Redskins. I haven't seen a lot of tape on this guy. There's not really a lot of stats in terms of offensive linemen, but I'm going Greg Little, 6'6", 325 pounds, the offensive lineman out of Ole Miss. You got to do whatever you can to protect the quarterback in Washington. I mean, they drafted Brandon Scherff a couple years ago. Look at how he's proven to be. I mean, he's a very good offensive lineman. Go ahead and get Greg Little.
And honestly, again, as we said before, tackles are a huge, huge need in the NFL. You need to be able to protect your quarterback. And as we saw this year, Alex Smith got hurt for them. Their O-line was abysmal this year. Getting Greg Little...
And it was injured. They had to go out and get guys like Jonathan Cooper late in the season. So
I really like the Greg Little pick here. A lot of people have Daniel Jones from Duke going here.
Yeah.
I think, in my own opinion, it would be smart to go O-lineman here and wait a year, possibly, because I don't think Washington's going to be that good next year. Wait and get a Tua. I hate to say it, but tank and get Tua, get a Justin Herbert. It's a thought. It's a thought. So we'll move on. We'll go to Carolina at 16 to Cody Ford.
Yep, that is the pick though. Cody Ford is the pick. Cam Newton, he's been hit way too much in his career. They haven't given him the right offensive line to operate as a passer. I mean, he had shoulder surgery, and he may miss this year, supposedly. So I'm going to take Cody Ford here. He can play tackle and guard, and it'll be a great piece for that offensive line.
Yeah, I just knew you were going to take Cody Ford there. Mm-hmm. Carolina needs a lineman. He was the next best lineman there.
I saw him peeking over at your draft board over here.
I had to say it. It was obvious. I like Cody Ford. He's from Oklahoma. He's a big dude. I like him. So we're going to move on to Cleveland, though, at 17. And Cleveland, for the first time in a while, is in the mid of this draft without trading down. They are here. And honestly, they traded Josh Gordon earlier this year to the Patriots. So now you have Jarvis Landry. They kind of need a two. I mean, Rashad Perryman is not going to deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to take N'Keal Harry here. And from Arizona State, he had 1,088 yards, 9 TDs, plus a rushing TD. And one of the things I like about him is that he had a punt return TD last year. So he did show some versatility in the punt game or in special teams. So I like that there. I believe he would solidify their two instantaneously for the Browns. You have Landry, you'd have Harry, you'd have Perryman, you'd have what's the guy they drafted last year?
Oh, Callaway.
Antonio Callaway. So that's four pretty good wide receivers right there. Perryman, you could say, because he seemed like a bust up until last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I like N'Keal Harry here. I think he'd be a good pick for the Browns. Get that two opposite Landry. Give Baker another weapon. I just like the pick. So.
And how late? When was the last time we saw Cleveland this late in the draft?
Exactly.
It's awesome, man.
Without them trading down, this is the first time we've seen them in forever. Right. And it's good to. And I feel like they are so close to actually being in playoff contention, being right there for that wild card. That division could be wide open this year, honestly.
Sure. And Pittsburgh looks like they're kind of on the limb of decline.
If Antonio Brown gets traded, that Browns have a decent chance. But that's a debate for another day. So we will move on to Minnesota, and that is Buck.
So, this one's kind of betting on this player who I have Dexter Lawrence going. He had a really good freshman year in 2016. So, again, Minnesota's got to be kind of hoping for some magic, hoping that he kind of goes back to that 2016 year type of player. I mean, 2016, 62 tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks. I mean, that's a really good year. 2017, 2018 kind of dropped off a little bit. Maybe Minnesota can be the team to kind of bring him back to that freshman year. Again, this is pick, number 19?
This is pick 18.
Obviously, he's going to fall a little bit, but he's still a very talented player. Minnesota doesn't have, Everson Griffin's getting older. Sheldon Richardson's a free agent. There's someone else they have on that D-line that's pretty good. I'm forgetting, but you get Dexter Lawrence in the building. Daniel Hunter, you get Dexter Lawrence in the building. He's only going to be an upgrade for that defensive line. Minnesota struggled last year getting to the quarterback. So, again, this is only an improvement at that position.
I do like this pick. He is going to fall in this draft due to the positive test at the championship game. So I do believe a lot of people are saying he could fall to the second round. I don't see that. He is a athletic freak. His stats were good. Before that test, he was projected to be a top 15, top 20 player. So I see him still going there. I don't think that test is going to scare teams off too much. So I like this pick here for Minnesota. I think Dexter Lawrence would be a fantastic pick for them. So we'll move on to the Tennessee Titans, number 19.
So with the Titans, they had a very interesting year. I mean, they started off really slow, then turned it on at the end, and then had that winner-go-home game against the Colts at home, and they lost it. So Marcus Mariota is your quarterback. He's been very inconsistent in his few years there, but the thing is he hasn't had a lot of wide receivers. I mean, they drafted Corey Davis a few years ago, and again, he's another player that's been very inconsistent for that team. So I'm going to have them take A.J. Brown from Ole Miss here. He can play on the outside or the slot. I mean, if you pair him with Corey Davis and Tywan Taylor, I think you have a decent receiving core there. His 1 year, junior year, he had 1,300 yards and 6 touchdowns. I really like this pick here, and it's also good to help evaluate Marcus Mariota if you want to decide to throw a huge deal at him eventually. So I like this pick.
I agree. A lot of people again say A.J. Brown is their top wide receiver in this draft, so the Titans landing the top wide receiver in this draft potentially. With Corey Davis would be fantastic.
He was our first wide receiver to go, right?
No, N'Keal Harry was.
Oh, okay, right.
But that's just my own personal. I like N'Keal Harry. I think that he's a tad bit better than A.J. Brown, but A.J. Brown in a lot of people's minds is number one. So I think that'd be a good pick here. But we'll move on to Pittsburgh at 20. And in my own personal mock draft, this is where I had Byron Murphy going. So I'm going to go with the next best corner that's on the board here because the Steelers need DB help. That's what they need. So I'm going to go DeAndre Baker out of Georgia. And honestly, a lot of people say he is the most NFL-ready corner out of this draft. And he thrives in zone coverage, but he's good enough to play man. So I think the Steelers take him here. They need corner. They need DB help. I want to say corner. They need DB help. They need coverage. And DeAndre Baker is that. He will help his team immediately. He will be a day one starter. I love this pick for the Steelers. The only other thing I can say is I was kind of in between on him and Trayvon Mullins here. I like both of them a lot. I do think DeAndre Baker will be the pick, though, but I like Trayvon Mullins a lot. So DeAndre Baker, number 20, Pittsburgh. We'll move on to Buck with his Seattle at 21.
Seattle, yeah. So here's another pick that's interesting. Did anyone here expect them to make the playoffs last year? I mean, really, I think you'd be lying if you said you did. I mean, honestly, like I could have said I had them like a 4-12 team last year. They really did shock me, and I was way off on my prediction of like 4-12, 5-11. They had the playoffs last year, and they're here at this pick. Last year, complete bust, complete miss. Rashad Penny. I mean, what even happened to that guy? I mean, luckily they had Chris Carson, maybe a little Mike Davis there too as well. This year, I don't think they're gonna miss. I'm going DK Metcalf, who's right next to A.J. Brown on the Ole Miss wide receiver core. I think he's kind of been a shadow to A.J. Brown and overlooked in a lot of ways. Seahawks, they got Doug Baldwin, who's aging a little bit. Tyler Lockett, he might want, a bigger contract soon. He's kind of hitting that free agent market soon. He had a good year, so he's going to want some more money. And they also have David Moore. Mm-hmm. Maybe he can return and be productive next year. But DK Metcalf, 6'4". I mean, they tried that out with Brandon Marshall earlier this season. He was 6'4". He was a little bit older, but 6'4", 225 pounds. Again, you look at his stats, not very productive, but in a college where A.J. Brown was kind of that main guy there, again, I think he was overlooked and he's kind of the shadow to A.J. Brown. Maybe that's not the best way to put it, a shadow, but he was just overlooked. And I think in the Seahawks offense, where they seem to find these guys like Chris Matthews a couple years ago in the Super Bowl, these random receivers, I mean, even Tyler Lockett, he was almost an undrafted guy. He was late rounds.
Late pick, yeah.
They find these guys and have production out of them. Yeah. So get the production you can out of DK Metcalf.
I like that pick a lot, mostly because Moore last year, though he had a few games where he played really well, he had a big drop issue.
Right.
So I believe he would be the more substantial third for them. You have Baldwin, you'd have Lockett, and you'd have Metcalf, and I believe that's a lot better than Baldwin, Lockett, and Moore, in my opinion. So this is a great pick here. The only other thing I could see is them maybe going safety if they lose Earl Thomas, but that's only if they were to lose Earl Thomas. I really like the wide receiver take here. So we'll move on. We'll move on to Baltimore at 22.
All right, so for this pick, I really look at their playoff loss to the Chargers. And for most of that game, they played terrible and they struggled. At the end, they turned it on a little bit, made it close, but then they couldn't finish it off. The big thing in that game is their wide receivers could not get separation whatsoever. They already said they want to move on from Michael Crabtree and John Brown, possibly. So that leaves you with Chris Moore and a bunch of nobodies, I guess. So,
that seems like it's always what it is with the Ravens. Yeah. I mean, they got these random guys. They also had a couple years ago, Mike Wallace and Jeremy Maclin. Yeah. You're taking a wide receiver here. Get that position right.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to have him take Hollywood Brown out of Oklahoma. In his 2 years as a starter, he put up 17 touchdowns and 2,400 yards, which is fantastic. Yes, he did have two of the better quarterbacks to come out of college football the past years in Baker and Kyler, but I think him and Jackson can make a really good duo. The big thing is Lamar Jackson. Yes, he had a lot of success last year with the running, but now with all of his stuff on tape, I don't think they will find as much success. So get him a number one wide receiver.
I agree with that because you could see in the Chargers game, not to gloat because I am a Chargers fan, but it was the second time they had versed him. You could see that they kind of knew a bunch of what they were going to do. They kind of forced Lamar to throw, and through, 3 quarters, he had, 18 passing yards or something like that. So Lamar is going to have to throw a little bit more next year, and I think getting him that true number 1 in Hollywood Brown would be a perfect thing for Lamar. I think it's actually a really good pick, too, because he's a good field stretcher, and I think for Lamar, that'd be perfect. You get some guy who can go deep and make them those contested catches. That's going to open up the field for Lamar and that run game. So I think it's perfect. So we're going to move on to Houston at 23. And there's a couple things Houston can improve on, but the big glaring need is O-line. You need to protect Deshaun Watson. He has already been hurt once in his career. Don't want him to get hurt again. He was hit a lot last year. And he's obviously going to be your franchise quarterback for years to come. So you need to, again, find that O-lineman to protect him. Jawan Taylor out of Florida is that guy. He is a huge 6'5", 334-pound man. Huge man. He is good in the run game. He's even better in the passing game. The only thing I would have to say is that he gets caught up with his hands sometimes. So holding in the NFL, he's going to have to learn how to keep his hands inside. If he gets beat, he kind of panics and grabs. But he has shown that he is a very, very, very good passing blocker. Could improve in the run game a little bit. But Jawan Taylor here, I feel like, is the pick for the Texans. Improve their line. Help Deshaun Watson out. I love this pick here. We'll move on. We'll go to Oakland's second pick in the first round. The 24th overall pick.
So earlier in this draft, the Oakland Raiders also went defense with Rashawn Gary. I have them going defense again. And a couple of picks ago, you said that, or you went DeAndre Baker, but the other guy you would have gone was Trayvon Mullins.
Yes.
He's kind of fallen a couple picks even beyond that. He's going to Oakland number 24. Trayvon Mullins, 6'2", which is kind of the standard for corners now. Everyone loves that 6'2" frame. A couple of years ago, it was 5'10", 5'11". Yeah. They like these 6'2" guys now. He's going to fall down a little bit because of his production. A lot of these he could go higher, but a lot of these other teams went with team needs. Yeah. So he kind of has fallen a little bit. And Oakland's going to love this pick because who they really have? Rayshon Melvin and Rogers Camardi's gone.
Conley hasn't been the greatest.
Conley. They even talked about trading him. So Trayvon Mullen's going to be the best guy there. And again, production-wise, not great numbers. It's not going to stand out to you, but at this pick, at this late in the first, you've got to take him.
Yeah, I like the Trayvon Mullen pick. Again, as I said, I contemplated him at the 20th pick for Pittsburgh. He's out of Clemson. He was one of the big reasons they won that. Well, I can't say one of the big reasons because that team was just all around amazing. But he did help. He was a very good corner. He was their number 1 corner, and I like him a lot. I think Oakland is getting a steal here with Trayvon Mullins at 24. But we'll move on to Philly at 25.
Philly, this pick might come to a shock at a lot of people. I guess throughout the year their secondary was very suspect due to a lot of injuries. But, I think a lot of people would have or mock them taking a defensive back of some sorts. But you know what? I'm going to have them take a running back. Josh Jacobs from Alabama. So hear me out on this. Josh Adams last year, he started off pretty well, but then got very ineffective as the year went on. Wendell Smallwood, he's nothing more than a bench player to me. Corey Clement, I think you could have something as more of like a pass catcher with him, but he's nothing special. And Darren Sproles is getting up there in age. He was talking about retiring. Now he's saying maybe he'll come back. But you know what? This gets you a workhorse running back, Josh Jacobs. His career at Alabama, he had 1,491 yards and 16 touchdowns. And then through the air, he also he had 571 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. But the big number that stands out to me is he had 6 yards per carry, which is huge at the NFL. A lot of running backs average around 4.5, 5. This is what the Eagles need. They already have a great offensive line and help take some pressure off of Carson Wentz.
I like that. I like that pick a lot. I believe Josh Jacobs is the all-around best running back in this draft. Yes, they're getting Jay Ajayi back, but you never know how healthy he's going to be. He has that knee problem, so you can't really rely on him for years to come, and I really like Josh Jacobs. His willingness to go in there and do the dirty blocks for others is just fantastic. Lining him up with like a Corey Clement, he can be the Corey Clement's lead blocker, and he won't care. He'll go out and he will go out there and he will do the dog's work, and I love him. He's again one of my favorite players in this draft. So we'll move on to Indy, which is my pick. Indy at 26, and I have him taking Jachi Polite. Falling this far, he's a very talented player. A lot of people have him going a little farther up than this, but at 26, him falling to Indy, I believe Indy would happily take this. An outside linebacker who's really, really good at pass rush. His best trait is his burst off the line. He's very quick getting off the line. He had 19.5 tackles for loss and 11 sacks last year. His run defense could improve a little bit, and that's somewhere where I think he might falter in the NFL. But, I mean, 19.5 tackles for loss, you can't say that's horrible. That's really, really, really good. But the NFL's a faster game. I have seen that his hands are also another issue. He gets trapped sometimes off blocks. But, again, his quickness off the edge, I think, is what's going to get him drafted. He has a knack for getting to the quarterback, so I like this pick a lot for Indy. So after this, we go to Oakland's 27th overall pick.
The wait is over, viewers. I was honestly hoping neither of you picked this guy earlier because he has fallen to this pick, Kyler Murray, the quarterback out of Oklahoma. Now, do we know, is he choosing baseball? Is he choosing football? No, we don't know that yet. But I'm going to bet on him choosing football. Okay, I think the reward is a lot higher than baseball. I think the spotlight's a lot higher than baseball. For football, I think it's a lot higher. So he's going to go here to the Raiders. Now, I get they have Derek Carr. But what's honestly the future of Derek Carr? He didn't have a good year last year. You take Kyler Murray here. What did the Chiefs do with Patrick Mahomes? They drafted him. They put him behind Alex Smith, who they knew wasn't their future at quarterback anymore. They can do that with Kyler Murray here. Let him sit behind Derek Carr for a little bit. He's 5'10". He's a little bit on the shorter side. But this guy, he had a lot of production. He had, 4,300 passing yards, 42 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. That's production. And all the viewers, they've watched the film. They've seen him all on SportsCenter. This guy is talked about all the time. The Raiders not only are getting a good player, but this could bring back Oakland fans, and they're headed to Las Vegas in a couple of years. Who's going to be that guy on the billboard advertising for this team? None other than Kyler Murray.
I love this pick here because, again, as you just said, they're moving to Vegas. You need a marquee player to sell jerseys to this new crowd. Who better than the Heisman Trophy winning Kyler Murray? And I know Oakland fans are going to castrate this because they love Derek Carr. They think that Derek Carr just had a bad year due to their offense, due to the lackluster of offensive weapons they had. I, myself, don't think Derek Carr is that good of a quarterback. I think, and John Gruden, people have said that everybody knows that Derek Carr isn't his guy. He wanted to get his own guy, and I believe Kyler is going to be John Gruden's guy. He's going to love this pick. He's going to be the one who makes this pick. It's going to be John Gruden who's going to be like, why not? I want Kyler. I want the Heisman Trophy winning Kyler Murray. And after next season, when Kyler Murray has a good season, Oakland fans will forget who Derek Carr is. Mm-hmm. So now we move on to the Chargers pick. Ooh. The 28th overall pick.
So I know my buddy Eric, his favorite player on the Chargers, Jahlil Addae. He was terrible last year. I mean, the one good thing he did all year was make that interception and then fumble the ball. So that could be a huge need. Deontay Thompson or, say, Adderley. I could definitely see them go here. But you know what? I'm going to look at their playoffs loss against New England. I'm going to look at the Pats running backs combining for 28 carries for 141 yards and 4 touchdowns. Right here, you definitely need a defensive tackle, in my opinion. Lujic got hurt, and he's old anyways. And Brandon Mebane, I'll say a prayer for him due to the loss of his daughter. Yeah. But, yeah, he may retire. He's old. This guy here, he was projected to be around a top 10, top 15 pick. Had a domestic violence case. He didn't get invited to the combine. Jeffrey Simmons from Mississippi State. I really like this pick. Like I said before, he was supposed to be a top pick before he had his incident there. He had 7 sacks and 33 tackles for loss. This guy's a great run stuffer, and you pair him with Bosa and Ingram. this D-line will be unstoppable. I'm just going to say it now. So I love this pick.
And in terms of free agency, there's some available safeties for the Chargers, so they don't necessarily have to draft a safety here.
No, I have seen that. Amos, Landon Collins, Earl Thomas. There's a lot of safeties out there this year. I don't hate this pick. Jeffrey Simmons, I think D-tackle is a huge need because Mebane, again, prayers up. I mean, that is just a sad thing that happened. Mebane, there's been reports that he may retire. If he does come back, I would love that. He's a leader in that locker room. But Lugit, people are saying that he's a most likely cut. So you lose Lugit, Mebane might be retiring. You need D-tackle help. As James just brought up, the sad history of us losing to the Pats in the divisional round that hurt very, very bad. We do need a D-tackle. A D-tackle is a huge need for us. So Jeffrey Simmons would be fantastic. I would love the pick. We'll move on, though, to KC, which is my pick. And for me, what was KC's worst thing about them this year?
Secondary.
Their secondary. Basically, most of their defense other than their D-line. And I'll give you Reggie Ragland. He played fantastic also. But your secondary, you need more secondary help. I believe Eric Berry comes back more healthy next year, so he'll be fine. But I think you add a good player next to him in Deontay Thompson, the Alabama safety. You add Eric Berry and Deontay Thompson. I believe that is a lethal duo right there. Yes, they do need corner help, but I believe you can get a corner later on in this draft or possibly through free agency. So I believe Deontay Thompson and Eric Berry would be a good duo. Mostly with the fact that your D-line is already good. You got Chris Jones, you got D Ford, if you re-sign him, which I believe they will. I really like this pick for the Chiefs. The Chiefs should, throughout this entire draft, go full-on defensive mode. That's what they need. So I like this pick, Deontay Thompson, for him. We'll move on, though. We'll go to Green Bay at 30.
So this might not necessarily be a position of need, but more or less best player available for this anyways. I've got the Packers going Mack Wilson, inside linebacker. The guy out of Alabama. So Alabama's defense, sometimes these guys have better production because of the guys around them, but he's still been pretty productive, even from 2016, not a starter, moving up to 2017, and again, a lot. And you can look at it from this angle, too. Alabama has so much talent. You still have to be pretty dang good on that team to get the starting job. 40 tackles in 2017. That went up to 65 tackles in 2018, along with 2 interceptions, a sack. Good stats. You might be thinking for the Packers, this position might not be the biggest need. They got guys like Jake Ryan and Blake Martinez, but Nick Perry's gone. Clay Matthews maybe gone.
He's definitely on his way out.
Mack Wilson, inside linebacker, but this is a guy who's very athletic. You can transform him into an outside linebacker, play him in different types of schemes. I think it's just the best available player for Green Bay at this point.
He's very versatile too, and from what I've watched on him, he will be a 3-down linebacker because you can put him into coverage, and he is a decent cover linebacker. So I like this pick a lot for them. I believe Green Bay is getting a very, very good linebacker with that pick. We'll move on to New England at 31. When we're recording this, we don't know who won the Super Bowl yet, so Rams and New England can flip-flop here, but right now New England is 31, so we'll give it over to James.
So this is another interesting pick. I honestly, in my opinion, I think the Pats will trade out of this pick and try to gather more of those mid-round picks where they're very successful in picking players. But you know what? For the sake of this, I'm going to have them use their pick, and I'm going to have them take them Noah Fant. Gronk, he's obviously been a shell of himself. He only had 3 touchdowns, which was his worst in years. He didn't even break 1,000 yards. I mean, I had him in fantasy. Trust me, I knew the pain of starting him every week. But Noah Fant from Iowa, I believe, a great tight end, definitely the best. Even including the wide receiver, he's one of the best pass catchers in this draft. Give this guy Brady. Brady will play till he's 65, honestly. So Noah Fant.
And you also said he didn't have the most productive season at college, but what better team to develop this kind of kid than the New England Patriots? They took Julian Edelman, a quarterback, put him into wide receiver. I mean, they draft these guys all the time. Guys, he's a second thought. Like, you don't think about him, and then he comes out of nowhere and he's a star on the Patriots.
Noah Fant would be fantastic in the New England offense, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
So I have the last pick in the draft. and that is the Rams. And there is still a lot of talent on the board. Nasir Adderley, who's my favorite player in this entire draft, out of Delaware. You got David Edwards out of Wisconsin, T.J. Hawkinson, tight end Zach Allen. Devin Bush is still there. But I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go with Brian Burns here out of Florida State, defensive end. Again, his best trait is his pass rushing. Again, he's another guy who run defense could be a little bit better, but that's something that can be coached into someone. He's 6'5", 231 pounds. He had 15.5 tackles for loss and 10 sacks this last season. He has good flexibility and a really good motor. I like this pick for the Rams mostly because there's a possibility they lose Dante Fowler. So you replace him with Brian Burns through the draft. Mostly for the last pick of the draft, I think you are possibly getting a steal here because he's definitely a guy who could go higher up in the first round. So I really like this pick for the Rams. But again, I believe there is still a lot of talent on the board.
This is a deep draft. Yeah.
After this, I mean, you still got David Edwards, T.J. Hawkinson, Zach Allen, Devin Bush, Jerry Tillery, Kevin Harmon, Nasir Adderley, DeMonte Jones. I mean, there's just Dalton Rinsner out of Kansas State. He's a no tackle. A lot of people are saying he could go top 15. I mean, there's so much depth in this draft right now that would all be second round talent in this draft. Mm-hmm. So that's huge. Do you guys have anything else you want to say on this draft? No.
A mystery team to trade up. I think with Zach Taylor coming in to coach the Bengals, possibly I could see Cincinnati trading up and trying to grab a quarterback. Maybe Dwayne Haskins.
That's another thing. We have Daniel Jones not going in the first round, which is pretty huge because a lot of people have him going in the first. Mm-hmm. I like him a lot out of Duke. He had a very, very good Senior Bowl. Not that Senior Bowl really means too much, but he did have a good Senior Bowl. So,
and again, we're doing a mock draft. You got to remember this mock draft has no trades.
Yeah.
I mean, we could see a lot of trades up. I mean, what if someone trades to number 3 or even 2, I mean, and takes a quarterback? These other teams are going to be panicking to move up to take a quarterback. I mean, anything can happen in these drafts.
So what we are probably going to do is every week try to post a new mock draft with our changes to what we want to do. It'll most likely be the same way we just did it here. Sometimes we will post our own private mock drafts and what we want to do, but this is basically going to something we're going to do weekly. We're going to try to get mock drafts out every week as possible as we can. Anything else? No?
No, that's basically it.
All right. Well, thank you for watching. You can find this podcast on the We Live for Sports YouTube channel or on iTunes. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.